Hello and welcome. My name is Jessica Bear, and in this PowerPoint we will be discussing disruptive staff and workplace violence. We will also apply this to how this affects nurses and how it can be managed. Defined by Moore, Sublet, and Leah, a healthy workplace means one that allows staff to provide high-quality care and promote job satisfaction. Keep in mind, where there is job satisfaction, there is also patient satisfaction. It is also evident that this environment is achieved when the following is present on the unit: collaboration and teamwork. Just for an introduction, disruptive staff. According to the text, disruptive staff is also known as harassing behaviors. These behaviors include bullying, lack of civility, and horizontal violence. These behaviors will be more deeply explained in the slides to come. Workplace violence. According to Sullivan, and I quote, "Workplace violence is any violent act, including physical assaults and threats of assault, directed toward persons at work or on duty. These acts of violence can be initiated by patients, family members of the patients that we care for, coworkers, vendors, employees, or colleagues." Acts of violence include threatening actions, verbal or written threats, physical attacks, and violent attacks. As discussed in the previous slide by Sullivan, there are behaviors associated with disruptive employees, and those are either one or a combination of bullying, lack of civility, or horizontal violence. According to Sullivan, bullying threatens the victim but also poses a danger to patients. For instance, if an employee is feeling bullied, they may project these feelings into their work, which puts patients at risk. This also increases occurrences of absenteeism, and the turnover rate of employees increases. This can be troublesome for nurse managers when trying to appropriately staff a unit. Lack of civility is when a person acts as the following: rude, disrespectful, impolite, or ill-mannered. All of these characteristics makes for a disruptive and unhealthy work environment. Horizontal violence is violence between employees. Sullivan discusses that it can be easily remembered by thinking of the direction that horizontal goes. Typically, the violence occurs on equal rankings within the hospital. Other forms of disruptive staff are ones who are marginal, meaning they never reach a level of competence that is expected for an experienced nurse. Disgruntled employees are ones who complain all the time and bring down the overall morale of the unit. And then the last form is employees with a substance abuse problem. This can include alcohol or drugs. To go on horizontal bullying, as discussed on the previous slide, horizontal bullying occurs between coworkers or persons within the same ranking. Bullying is defined as singling someone out to harass and mistreat. Bullying affects not only the victim, which in this discussion is the nurse, but also the patients and the entire organization. Statistically speaking, Gronshaw reports that 50% of nurses report that they have experienced bullying in their career. However, a limitation to this is that some employees don't report bullying because it is embarrassing. It also needs to be pointed out that bullying can sometimes be misdefined. For instance, not bullying actions include expressing differing opinions, instruction, staff training, and constructive feedback. There are some ways to minimize horizontal bullying. Mentors and nurse educators are available to new nurses. The mentor and the nurse educator should teach the new nurse how to deal with being bullied, the steps that should be taken if they are bullied, and how to prevent themselves from becoming a bully within the workplace. Overall, these employees need to provide both nursing education as well as emotional support and education. The Joint Commission and American Nurse Association have made strides to limit disruptive staff situations. The Joint Commission has a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to disruptive or abusive behavior. Also, the American Nurses Association recommends strategies to combat hostility, abuse, and bullying. Lastly, states have been proposing a bill that allows workers to sue for harm that is made by abusive treatment. Nurse managers need to recognize disruptive relationships between staff to promote their unit's successfulness. Some may rely on a nurse manager to solve their issues with coworkers. However, in the study performed by Moore, Sublett, and Leah, it was stated by 100% of the employees that the responsibility of dealing with disruptive staff lays on their shoulders. Most employees and nurse managers stated that to address the problem with employees, they either bring the issue to light, hold clear expectations with staff, or utilize coaching and education. There is also workplace violence that can occur within a unit. As discussed in the introduction, workplace violence is any violent act, including physical assaults. This can be caused by patients, family members of patients, coworkers, vendors, employees, or colleagues. These violent acts include threatening actions, verbal written threats, physical attacks, and violent assaults. Workers most at risk for workplace violence are employees who work in the emergency room, mental health units, or drug dependency units. It is good to point out some examples of the workplace violence. For instance, threatening can include waving fists, throwing objects, or threatening body language. Physical attacks can include slapping, hitting, biting, shoving, kicking, pushing, or beating. Violent attacks can include rape, homicide, attacks with weapons such as knives, firearms, or bombs. In 2018, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that 16,980 individuals in private industry experienced trauma from workplace violence. With this total, 70% were female, 67% were aged 25 to 54, 70% worked in healthcare, and lastly, 21% required 31 or more days to recover away from work. That means that this individual was not able to return to work during this time, which can cause staffing issues and in return, the possibility of more burnout to nurses. As you can see, workplace violence is widely occurring in the world and has a poor effect to all members surrounding the affected individual. Overall, there are many things that can be done to prevent and assist with workplace violence. These prevention tools are very similar to the disruptive staff prevention tools. Education is always key. Educate employees that workplace violence needs to be reported and how to handle situations or predicaments that they are placed in. Another prevention tool is trust. An employee must trust their nurse manager or their chain of command so they feel comfortable enough to report workplace violence and not embarrassed by it. Awareness is also key. Employees need to be aware that workplace violence does occur and that its prevalence is rising each year. Due to reporting from employees, prompt interventions can be made to find the source of why workplace violence cases are increasing, as well as what interventions can be done. Some say burnout and compassion fatigue causes an individual to possess the characteristics associated with the term disruptive staff. It can also make one more susceptible to creating workplace violence. According to Reese et al., it is also evident that burnout and compassion fatigue is relatable to depression. Burnout is most often work-related and causes one to feel stressed, emotionally exhausted, frustrated, depressed, and the inability to work effectively. It can also be said that resilience is the key to not becoming burnt out or experiencing compassion fatigue. I know that when I first became a nurse recently, I felt weighted down by my job. I dreaded going in and was contemplating leaving. I felt stressed out all the time at work and felt somewhat burnt out. Recently, I've tried a new mindset. My new mindset is to take it minute by minute. I realize that all I can do is to try the best I can to do at my job, and that when 7:30 a.m. hits, I am done and can leave. This mindset has made me feel a lot less stressed with work and has made me a better nurse because I rush less and take my time. Overall, don't stress the small stuff. In this video, it details the effects that burnout has on employees. As mentioned in the video, 33% of nurses seek a new job within their first year. In my opinion, I think a new nurse needs to stick with their job for at least a year to allow themselves to really adjust to their new position. Based on that 33%, it can be determined that the nurse turnover rate is at this same rate. Please click on the link in this slide to watch a video on how workplace violence is affecting nurses within the community. Take some time to review the below statistics listed on the slide. At the end of it, disruptive staff and individuals who experience workplace violence need support. A disruptive staff member acts the way they do due to something occurring internally. Whether burnout, death in the family, or stresses at home, these people need support from outside forces. As an employee, we can support these people. For instance, if a coworker is being rude to you, kindly ask if everything is okay or if there's anything you can do. We need to be supporting our coworkers just in case if something is going on internally. Here are my references. If you guys have any questions, you can email me at jmbear@pacollege.edu. Thank you. Bye.